let's start today's class. So in this class, we'll talk about some very basic concepts of control systems. So before going into what a control system is, let us first see uh, what is a system. Okay. So basically, a system is something which is a collection of, you can say, some physical components, biological components, or abstract components. So if you have all these kind of components which come together and they work in coordination with each other, and the objective of the whole thing is that we need to achieve some intended or some desired objective. So that is known as a system. And if you want to see from a control perspective, so from control point of view, a system is defined as something which will have, which when subjected with a certain input. So this input is generally known as this excitation. So yeah, so the input signal that you get is this excitation. So the moment you apply some input signal or excitation to a system, the system will respond to this input and it will generate an output or a response of the system. So this is known as you can say this is known as a control system. Now a system or a control system, it can have, so in this figure you can see that I have represented the whole system as one block. Okay. But what is there inside this system? So this inside this block, there can be n number of subsystems. So the overall system might look like something like this. So let's say you have a subsystem 1 over here, and so this is the input signal that you are getting, and so your input, so here you can see that the whole thing is a system. So the system will have an input, the system will have an output. But inside this whole system, there are multiple subsystems like S1, S2, S3, S4. These are all multiple subsystems, and they are joined or they are connected in such a way such that so that we get a desired output at the end of the system. So now what can be some possible examples of the system? So mostly whatever we see in and around us, be it electrical equipment, be it electronic circuit, or even a biological system like a human body, or some abstract thing like some economic plan or something like that. So everything or most of the things can be considered as a system. So so let's take an example of a motor. So in a motor, you see that the input to the motor is some kind of an electrical energy. So we apply some sort of an electric voltage to a motor, and inside the motor, it converts the electrical energy through some mechanism, and at the output of the motor, we get a conversion. We get some sort of movement. So either it is in form of a torque or rotation. So there is some sort of rotation that is happening at the output of the motor. So that means in the motor, you have the input is the electrical energy and the output is the mechanical energy. Similarly, if you see the working of an air conditioner, in an air conditioner also, we are providing it with some sort of electrical voltage, and the function of this air condition is such that it will control or rather it will convert the electrical energy into some sort of heat energy, and that the generation or absorption of heat energy that will modify or that will manipulate the ambient temperature which is there in a room. Now, if you see human body, let's say we have there is a person who is infected with a virus, and so for the treatment of that virus, so some drug is administered to that person. So that means, so now if you consider the human body which has been infected with the virus, that as a system, so that means the input to that system will be that medicine that has been administered, and the output of the system will be the medicine will go inside the body and it will distribute in the body, and it will try to kill off the virus. So that means the distribution of the drug inside the body and its effect on the whole body by and its mechanism how it kills the virus, so that the output is the drug distribution. Similarly, if you see a moving vehicle, a car or a bus or any automobile, so there the input is basically the acceleration. So either you accelerate the vehicle, or you decelerate, or you press the brake, or you decelerate the vehicle. So and the output of that will be, there will be change in the velocity of the car as well as the displacement of the car. So these are some of the like very crude examples of systems. So now we'll see what how we can classify a system. So depending on the nature of a system, it can be classified. There can be multiple classifications. So a system can be classified as a linear or non-linear system. There can be static or dynamic systems. Then there can be systems which are varying with time. Similarly, systems which are not varying with time. So that means time variant systems and time invariant systems. And the fourth one is causal or non-causal systems. So now we'll see what how to classify a system as a linear system or a non-linear system. So first, in a linear system, as the name suggests, a system will be considered as linear if the output of the system that varies linearly with the input. So how do you know that it varies linearly with the input? So that means the output should satisfy the condition of homogeneity and the superposition. So the principle of homogeneity and the superposition should be satisfied. If that those two principles are satisfied by the output, then we can say that the system is a linear system and the output is varying linearly with the input. So so the let's see the superposition, the concept of, so first is the superposition. So in case of, let's say we have a system whose which is defined by this function x, where x is the input, okay, and so and y is the output. So now let us say that we are giving two different inputs. So one is x1, one is x2. So for this input x1, the output will be f x1. Let's say that is equals to y1. And for this input x2, the output is f x2, which is equals to y2. So now if we have a third input, which is the summation of x1 and x2, so that means the output of the system would be equals to f of x1 plus x2, which is equal to, let's say, y dashed. Now the superposition theorem says that if the output of, if this x1 plus x2 is equal to function of x1 plus x2, so that means if this equation is satisfied, that means the system is satisfying the superposition theorem. So in superposition theorem, what is happening is that there are, if you have multiple inputs, so the output that you are getting for individual inputs, that will be, if you add or if you take a sum of that of the individual outputs, that will be equal to the output which you are getting if you give a collective input from the previous cases. So that is the principle of superposition. And the principle of homogeneity, it states that, let's say, taking the similar example, if you have this some constant a, so if you have an input of ax, so that means the output will be, let's say this is y. So if the output is equals to a times f of x, since this constant should not have any effect, so it will just be multiplied at the end of the system, at the output. If this condition is satisfied, then we say that the principle of homogeneity is satisfied. So can you give an example of a linear system? So what can be considered as a linear system? So let me give you a hint or something that so all these the electrical components that we get, the resistance, capacitance, all these passive components. So do you think any one of them is linear or they are non-linear? Let's say we have a resistor. So is this resistor a linear system or a non-linear system? Anyone? Okay, so a resistor is basically a linear system because the resistor, you see the relation of a resistor is given by V equals to IR. So that means the out. So if you give an input voltage, then the output will be. So if V is the input, so that means I will be the output. So you can write I equals to V by R. And if you apply the principle of homogeneity and superposition, you can see that this equation I equals to V by R, this satisfies the principle of homogeneity as well as superposition. Because if you say I1, so let's say if you have an input V1, then it would be I1. If you have an input V2, it will be I2. So that means from here you can say that I1 plus I2 will be equals to nothing but V1 plus V2 by R, which is equals to V1 by R plus V2 by R. So that means that so the superposition theorem is fulfilled. Similarly, you can see that the homogeneity is also fulfilled. So the other examples of this linear system, all this inductor is also a linear system. Now let's see what can be considered as a non-linear system. So as the name suggests, the non-linear system that would mean that the output of the system is not varying linearly with the input. So that means they do not satisfy the principle of homogeneity as well as the superposition. So if you take an example of this non-linear system, so a diode is basically a non-linear system. So now, why do we consider diode as a non-linear system? How do you prove that? Because the voltage current relationship in the diode, that is given by I I0 e to the power d by tau minus 1. Okay. So now if you apply two different voltages V1 and V2, then you can see that after applying V1 and V2 separately, whatever output you are getting, if you add the two outputs, that will not be equal to the output that you will get if you have a collective input as V1 plus V2. So if you have, let me do it over here. So in a diode, you have I equals to I0 e to the power d by tau minus 1. So now if you have V1 as your input, so I1 will be equals to I0 e to the power V1 by tau minus 1. Similarly, I2 would be equals to I0 e to the power V2 by tau minus 1. Now if you have another, and now if your input, let's say, is I dash, and your will be I0 e to the power, let's say you have V1 plus V2 by tau minus 1. So now you can see e to the power V1 plus V2 by tau minus 1. This is not equal to this I1 plus I2. Okay. So since this, if I take an addition of both the individual inputs and take the output, so since this equation is not getting satisfied, so that means the superposition theorem is not being satisfied. The moment that is not satisfied, then you can say that this is not a linear system. This is a non-linear system. Similarly, in a similar way, you can prove that it does not satisfy the principle of homogeneity as well. So this is how you classify linear and non-linear system. So now coming to a second kind of classification, which is known as static and dynamic system. Okay. So what is a static system? So in a static system, the output of the system, it depends only on the current value of the input. So if you have a system, so let's say you have a system and you are giving a series of inputs to that system. So the output of the system will depend only on the input at that present moment. So that means these systems are more or less a memoryless kind of system. So for example, if you take a resistor, So let's say you have a voltage which you are giving. So some voltage V is being applied to the resistor, and the output you are getting is I equals to V by R. Now let's say in the second case, you change V from equals to 0. You remove the input voltage. So the moment the input voltage is removed, immediately at the same instant, the output current will go to 0. So that means the output is changing instantaneously by changing, if you change the input. So those kind of systems wherein the output is dependent only at the present moment of the present moment, only at the input which is applied at the present moment, those are known as static systems. And what are the dynamic systems? So the dynamic systems are the systems where the output, it depends both on the present inputs as well as the past inputs. So the past inputs means, so the moment it depends on the past input, it means that there is some sort of energy, or some sort of energy stored in the system, or there is some sort of memory which is present in the system. So that means if you write the equation in a if you write the equation of the output in as a function of the input, so for a static system, the function of, so yt will be a function of ut, where t is that at the same instant. Okay, but in case of a dynamic system, so yt should be would be equals, it will depend not only on the present, it will depend on the inputs from the past also, at instance which has occurred in the past. So what are some examples of this dynamic system? So let us say that all these elements which can store energy, like a capacitor or an inductor, so we know that if you change the voltage which is there across the inductor, so that change will not instantaneously the, so let us say that you have let us say we have, let's draw this circuit. So we have an R and we have an L over here, and there is some voltage input which is provided, okay, R and L, and the current which is flowing through the circuit is, let's say, I. So now if you write the equation, so V will be equals to nothing but IR plus L didt. Okay. So now if you solve this equation, so then you can write that I will be equals to I0 e to the power minus R by L into T, where I0 is equals to the value of I at instant T equals to 0. Okay, so what happens? So initially you have a voltage V. Okay, so we are applying some voltage V to this system, and let us say that the voltage is there for some instant or for some time. After that time has, let's say, V equals to 5, for time T equals to 5 minutes, this voltage was connected to the system. So after 5 minutes, let us say V, so let's say after some T equals to 5 minutes, we remove the voltage source. Okay, so that means there is no voltage happening. So that means the ideally, if this was a static system, the current through the system should immediately come down to 0, but that is not the case. Since there is an energy storing element present in the system, so that means the current through the current which is flowing through the system, that will exponentially reduce to 0, and it will not it will, so that current is given by this equation. So you see that there is an exponential function here. So the current, if you remove the voltage source, the current will exponentially decay down to 0, and it will take some time to go down to 0. So it will go down to 0 after some instant. So that means this system is, so instantaneously the output is not changed by changing the input. So these kind of systems, they are generally considered as the dynamic systems. So now let's see what are time variant and time invariant systems. So here there is something which we need to consider, that is the thing that the dynamics of the system should not be confused with the time variance of the system. Okay. So what do we mean by a time invariant system? So time invariant system would be something, let's say you have a system, we apply a, so let us say we have a resistor. Okay. So I'm applying some voltage V to the resistor now, and after applying it at 11:30 a.m., we are getting some kind of a current output. Now at 11:40 a.m., let us say we again apply the same input. Then if my system is giving the same output as the previous one, then we'll say that the system is time invariant. So that means time invariance means that the system output is in of the time at which the input was applied. And system variant and time variant systems will be something where if I apply, let us say there is a system where at 11:30, if you apply some input, you will get some output, let's say Y1. And at 11:40, when you apply the same input, you will get some other output Y2. So those kind of systems are known as time variant systems. So an example of a time variant system would be the mass of an aircraft. So the moment the aircraft is moving, so it keeps on burning fuel. And so as the fuel is burning, so that means the overall mass of the mass of the overall system is reducing. So that means you can say that the mass of the overall aircraft, which was there at the time of takeoff, will be different from the mass at the time of landing, because in the meantime, the fuel has been, maybe a majority of the fuel has been burnt off. So that means the parameters of the system are varying with time. So these kind of systems are known as time variant systems. So that means, so here the main thing that you need to consider is that the classification of this time variance, that is in terms of system parameters. So like the mass is getting reduced. But in case of a resistor, the system parameter remains same. The value of R was independent of the time. So that is where the difference lies between dynamic system and the time variant system. So in case of a time variant system, the system dynamics do not change, the system parameters are changing. So this is one thing that you need to keep in mind. And then the last kind of classification is causal and non-causal systems. So in case of a causal system, the output, it depends only on the inputs which has been either received in the present or in the past. So it does not depend on the future inputs. Okay, so these kind of causal systems are known as mostly non-anticipatory systems. So they do not anticipate the effect of the future inputs which might happen on at the. So that means if you write the equation, so it will depend on xt minus 1, both at the present instant as well as the past instant. So some like this thermostats. So the air conditioner that we have, let's say the air conditioner which is there in your room, that will generate the output depending on what is the condition of the room at the present moment. It will not it will not control the temperature by predicting what might happen if two more people enter the room. It will not do like that. So depending on the system parameters at that present moment, the output will be generated. And in case of a non-causal system, the output, it depends on the future inputs as well. So what the system does is that it anticipates the future inputs which might be there, and then accordingly it gives you an output. So some examples would be this weather forecast system. So in a weather forecast system, you see that what is done is that they study the geographical the weather for the weathers which was there maybe for the past few days, and they predict what might be the weather in the coming days. Depending on that, they give the output at the present moment. So that means this weather forecast system is dependent on it takes into account the future inputs as well. Also, if you see a very common example, like let's say you're preparing for an examination. So you don't know what the questions are going to come in the exam, but you anticipate that, okay, this was my syllabus. So that means these were the important topics. So there is a chance that these questions or questions related to these topics might come in the exam. So that means you will prepare yourself by studying those topics. right? So this giving an exam, these are examples of non-causal system where you are anticipating what your future inputs might be, and accordingly you are modifying your present output. Okay, so now let's see. Now let's go into control system perspective. So we have already defined a control system. So let us define it once more. So it is known as a control system is known as a system or a mechanism which directs the input and it takes directs the input and it takes it through a series of other systems, and at the end there is a regulated output that we are getting. In other words, you can say that if you have a quantity of interest, if you know that you have a desired output, so that if a control system is something which by means of which a desired output is obtained by passing the input through a series of systems or a series of systems or subsystems. So you can see in this figure. So you have let us say this is a block diagram kind. So we have a controller. So this is our desired reference. So that means we want the output to be of this value. So we have an input. So and that is known as the desired or your desired reference. Then you have a controller. The output of the controller is known as a control input, and that control input is fed into the plant or the system which needs to be controlled in such a way that the output of this plant or system is the one that we are trying to achieve. So this is sort of an, or you can say this is a open loop kind of a system, because there is the signal flow is only in one direction. So that means so here you see that there are two components. One is the controller and another one is the plant or the system. So for example, let us take the case for driving a vehicle. Okay, so when you're driving a vehicle, so that means in a vehicle, so the speed of the vehicle is basically a function of the position of the accelerator. So speed of the vehicle is function of accelerator position. So now if you want to go at a desired speed, so that means you will have to press your accelerator at a certain position. Okay, so the desired speed can be maintained by controlling the pressure that you are providing on the accelerator pedal. So and the system will be the system will consist of the accelerator, the carburetor, the engine, vehicle, everything combined together will give you the control system. So now if you draw the block diagram, let's see what are the components in the system that we are considering, that is the driving a vehicle. So first you will have this accelerator, the accelerator pedal, then you will have all the gears, the linkages, etc. And the input is the force that you are applying on the accelerator pedal. So input is basically force. Okay, the force that you are applying to the accelerator pedal. And because of that application of the accelerator pedal, what will happen? That is now connected to the engine. So because of the pressing of the accelerator pedal, what will happen is that will control the rate of fuel flow, which will go into the engine, and depending on the rate of the fuel flow, the engine, there will be an output. That output is velocity in this case. Okay, so that means because of the force that is applied, the carburetor valve that will either open or it will close depending on what output that you're trying to achieve. Depending on that, the rate of fuel flow will be controlled, and then it will go to the engine and you will get a desired output. So in a control system, so if you see that the block diagram, so there is a plant. So each block, you can say that it represents an element. It can represent a plant, some mechanism, and then each block has an input, all the blocks are connected. So if you see this block, every block will have an input and there will be an output, and the direction of flow of the signal through the block, that is unidirectional. So if the signal is flowing from left to right, it will always flow from left to right. It will not go in the backward direction. Okay. So now let us see what can be. So in this case, so you have, let's say you want to achieve a speed of 50 kilometers per hour. Okay. So you know what the speed that you need to achieve, and you know that if I apply some X amount of pressure on the accelerator pedal, that will result in a output velocity of 50 kilometers per hour. So if you keep this pressure on the accelerator pedal constant, then ideally the output should always so the velocity of the car will be maintained at 50 kilometers per hour. But that is sort of you can say that is an ideal kind of scenario. Since the car is moving on the road, it might so happen that there might be some disturbances which are there in the system. So the disturbances are such as, let's say there can be some sort of bumps on the road, there can be oncoming traffic, there can be a traffic signal. So depending on all these external factors, you might have to change the pressure or the force that you're applying on the accelerator pedal in order to get that your desired 50 kilometer per hour speed. So disturbance is basically defined as unwanted signals which affect the output of the system in an undesired way. So if you see that, let us say, other than this vehicle, let us take an example of that air conditioner in a room. So if you have so in the room, let's say there are 10 people, and the AC is turned on and the room temperature is maintained at let's say some 24 degrees centigrade. Okay. So now let us say that after some time, some 10 more people are entering the room. So that means the moment 10 more people are entering the room, so the system dynamics changes. So that means the output, so now if you give the same input, the output will not remain 27 degrees, 24 degrees centigrade. So because once the 10 more people enter, so let's say the temperature changes to 27 degrees centigrade. So now the output that you're getting, that is not equal to your desired output. So that means you have to make sure, or you have to have a mechanism such that you can see you can monitor what is the output that you're getting, and accordingly you can change your system such that your output is equal to the desired input. So that is what is being done by the controller. So this controller, what it does is that it manipulates or it changes the control input to the plant or the system in such a way that the effect of these disturbances and any other external factors, they can be eliminated, and the output that we are getting, that is equal to the desired output. Okay. So there are like two kinds of systems are there. One is open loop system, another is the closed loop system. So in an open loop system, so we have seen that if you have, so in this one, you see that this is an open, if you see the log diagram of this driving a vehicle, so this is an open loop kind of a system. So here we don't have we are not monitoring the output of the vehicle with respect and then changing the input accordingly. So if external disturbance is present, so for the same input, the output will be different. So that is known as a open loop kind of system. So any physical system so you can say that open loop. So the definition would be any physical system which does not automatically correct for any changes which is happening to its input is known as a open loop system. So any physical system which does not automatically correct for changes in output is known as a open loop system. Okay, so that means in an open loop system, if you give a fixed input, you will get a fixed output. Fixed input, you will get a fixed output. So there is no control over the output that we are getting. So this is only governed by the mechanism or the dynamics of the system that we have. So if you have some disturbances, so that will affect the final output. But in case of a closed loop system, what we do is that in case of a closed loop system, the output is measured and that is fed back to the that is used to manipulate the control signal that we are giving to the plant, so that there is a the desired response can be obtained. Okay, so in a closed loop system is basically, so the difference between an open loop and a closed loop system is that in a closed loop system we have a feedback path, and the feedback means the output is monitored and the and the input is changed depending on whatever is the output value, such that we can get the desired value of the output. Okay, so that is the feedback in control system. So this feedback in control system will be so you see this is the block diagram of a closed loop control system. So if you don't have this feedback path, then this is an open loop system. And if the moment you have this feedback path, so that means the output is monitored. There will be some system over here, some feedback block will be there, and the input to this controller will be the controller will compare the desired reference with the modified output, and then accordingly it will generate a control input so that the output is equal to the desired response that we are trying to get. So that means the feedback, it senses the plant signal, plant output, it gives a signal which can be compared with the reference, and the controller, what it does is that it generates a control output based on both the reference signal as well as the signal that we are getting from the feedback. So that the effect of feedback is that it enables the control system in such a way that it excites the system in such a way that you get the desired performance, even if there is some sort of external disturbance or noise which is present in the system. Because in the previous case, when we were dealing with an open loop system, so if there was a disturbance, then your output is changing, but we don't have any way of knowing how much the output is changing and how to control that output. So in case of a feedback system, what we are doing is that after, let's say, this disturbance is there, the output is changing. So now what the feedback will do is that it will sense the output, the changed output, that now will be fed back to the controller. So the controller, it will compare the desired reference with the feedback, the output which has been fed back, and depending on the difference between the two quantities, it will generate a control input such that this output is maintained at the desired condition that we are getting. So let's see the general block diagram of a closed loop control system will be. So you have so this is my reference. This is the control element. Then it goes to the plant or system, and then the output of the plant is the controlled output. And this output is, there is a feedback path, and the feedback, this thing goes to the, so this is basically a comparator, you can say. So this is a comparator or an error detector. So an error detector, and this whole thing, this control element plus the error detector. This is known as the controller. Okay, so this is the feedback path. This is the feedback path, and the forward path is from this part to this part. This is the forward path. Okay, so that means here you see that in this block diagram, you see that there is an error detector. So the error detector, it actually compares the signal which is obtained through the feedback elements. It compares it with the reference signal and it generates an error signal. So this is the error signal, or you can say this is also known as actuating signal. So this actuating signal, it actuates the control elements, and the output of the control elements is the control signal, which is given to the plant, and this control signal that is manipulated depending on what is the output that we are getting, so that the output is the desired one that we are trying to achieve. This block diagram I have already drawn. So now let's see some example. So now if you are given a control system, then what all are the factors, what all are the components of that control system? So this is a typical, you can say, a block diagram of an open loop air conditioner. So there is this, so you have this reference, so you have a reference temperature, then you have a temperature setting knob, and then you have an on off switch, then you have the air conditioner and the room. So the moment you are given with a control system, so there are some things which so you should first be able to identify which one is the process, what is the desired output, what is the input that you are giving to the system, how many subsystems are there are involved in the between the input and the output, what is the actuator. So these are some of the key parameters which are the key components which you should be able to identify in a control system. So let's say if you take into consideration the example of an air conditioner which is maintaining a desired temperature in a room. So the block diagram being like this. So the plant is, or the system which we are trying to control is the room. Then you have the control system, the controller or the control mechanism is done by the air conditioner. What is your reference signal? Reference signal is the temperature which we are setting using this temperature setting knob, and the control output will be, there will be an on off switch or some kind of on off switch which will produce the control output, and the output is the actual temperature of the room, and the disturbance will be if there are some factors which are affecting the ambient temperatures. Let's say there are some people entering the room, some people are leaving the room in the middle of the day. So those are considered as the disturbance, and the feedback is the output, the measured temperature that is fed back to the controller or the feedback to the error detector in order to maintain the actual temperature at the desired one. Similarly, if you see a vehicle, a human steering an automobile, so in that case the plant is a vehicle, then the control system is the human being who is trying to control the speed or position of the vehicle. So that means the output is the actual position, or you can say even the velocity of the car. These are the outputs. Then the input is the amount of pressure that you're giving on the steering mechanism. So these are the inputs, and the disturbance will be the oncoming, the traffic conditions. Similarly, if you see the example of a servo motor, in case of a servo motor, this servo motor means that it is mostly used in a position control system. So there is, in case of a so this is the diagram of a servo motor. So here you see that there is a generator and there is a motor. Okay, and there is, with some connections of gears and all, it is connected to a load. So what we want here is that we need to keep the load at a particular position. We need to control the position of the load which is present over here using this servo motor. So what is happening here is that here the control variable is the mechanical position or the time derivative of the position. Either we are trying to control or monitor the displacement or the position of the load, or we are trying to see the velocity or the acceleration at which the load is moving. So so let us say that there are so the output position is, let's say, theta c, and the desired input position is theta r. Now there are two put in case of a servo mechanism, there are two these potentiometers. So these potentiometers, what they do is that one potentiometer, let's say this potentiometer B, it monitors the output angular position, and it compares it with the reference with the output of this potentiometer A. So this potentiometer A is for the reference, and potentiometer B is for the output. So, sorry. So these two are compared, and the difference between the two the output is two potentiometers that is used to drive the generator. So for example, let's say that if you have let us say that this output theta c is at the shaft position is, let's say, 0.5 radian. Okay, and the constant of this potentiometer, let's say, that is Kp is equals to 100 volts per radian. Okay, so that means the output of the feedback potentiometer will be equals to theta c into Kp, which is equals to 50 volt. So the potentiometer B is at a position of 50 volt. Now, if the reference is also at a position, if the reference is also 50 volt, so that means the error signal, so the error signal is nothing but theta c minus theta r, or rather it should be theta r minus theta c. Theta r is the reference. So if theta r is also 50 volt, theta c is also 50 volt, so that means the error signal is 0. So that means there won't be error signal is 0. So that means the motor will not generate any torque, and the load stays stationary at this position. Now, in the second case, let's say that the input, the reference is still 0.5. So this theta r is still at 0.5 radian, but this theta c, it varies from 0.5, it changes to 0.6 radian. So that means because of this change in the output position, there will be a non-zero value of this error signal. So that non-zero value of the error signal, what it will do is that it will be amplified through this amplifier, and it will generate an amplified voltage which will be used to drive the generator. And because of that, there will be some the motor will some output torque will be created by the motor, and correspondingly the position of the load will change, and it will come, and this whole control action will continue until and unless the value of theta e becomes equals to 0. Now there can be another case where there is, let's say, there is some sort of a disturbance. So disturbance as in, now let us say that there is a torque, there is a load torque which is applying. So in the first case there was no load torque. Okay, so this TL was 0 in this case. So now let us say there is a torque which is being applied to the load. So that means the load is actually already moving. So that means this theta c is constantly changing. Now, if we want to keep the position of this load constant, so that means we have to have a mechanism in such a way that so that we can counterbalance the amount of the torque, the value of TL. So how do we do that? So that means there should be a steady error voltage. So a steady error voltage should be present that will counteract the effect of the load torque. Okay, so that means in this case, even though the error voltage is not 0, but still there will be a control action because we need to keep the position of this load fixed. So that's why even though the error voltage is not equal to 0, still we need a steady error voltage needs to be present in order to counteract the effect of the disturbance. Okay, so now let us recap a little bit about the control loop that we have studied. So the benefits of using this control or a negative feedback is that it. So we'll discuss in the next in the later classes how this feedback element is actually benefiting the system. So just to jot down the points. So first of all, it can help in reducing the effect of the disturbance inputs that we have already seen. Then to reduce the plant non-linearities, as well as the if some parameter of the plant changes, how to counteract those things. The steady state error can be reduced if we use a feedback system. So these are some of the or some of the advantages of the feedback system that we are that is generally used in control system. And if you have a control problem, as in, let's say you have been given you have been asked to design a control system. So that means there are certain steps which you need to follow. So first of all, you need to find out what are the feedback sensors that you are supposed to use for measuring the controlled output. Then you should have a proper choice of the actuator which will drive, or the controller which will drive the which will produce a control action, control input for the plant. Then the next step will be you have to develop some mathematical model of the sensor, the plant, or the actuator. And depending on the mathematical model, you will have to design the controller. You have to tune the controller in such a way that the overall system performance is same as the one that is desirable. So these are the things which we'll discuss in the next class. So mostly in the next class, we'll talk about different kind of mathematical models of plants or systems. Yeah, so that's all for today. So if you have any queries, you can ask now. So I have just one thing to ask. So am I going at a very fast pace, or is this okay for you? Because this is the first class, so I need your feedback. Like here also, there is this feedback mechanism. Depending on how you say that, okay, so this can be changed or not. Depending on that, I'll change the input to your class. So is the pace at which I am going, is it okay for you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so is there any doubt in today's lecture?
No, ma'am. I had a request, ma'am. Can you update can you upload the portion, ma'am, regarding this?
Can I upload what?
The portion, ma'am, the modules and the recommended textbooks.
Okay, so the syllabus and all.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Talking about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll upload the syllabus as well as the textbooks which are generally followed,
Yes,
and I'll
ma'am.
upload this presentation also, which we are discussing in the class. I'll upload that as well.